Watch people's faces the moment a song hits its peak. Something happens that's very hard to explain. For a few seconds, music seems like something more. Even scientists who don't believe in anything beyond atoms and neurons will admit that music does something strange to us. It just doesn't entertain. It seems to reach into our souls. So here's the question: why? Throughout history, music is an integral part of culture. From weddings to funerals, everywhere there's music. But why is music such an important part of our history? This is because music moves us. And there are two stories on why it does this. The first comes from an evolutionary psychology. On this view, everything about us, including our love for music, has to be explained purely in terms of survival and reproduction. And music is a strange fit for that story because liking a sound pattern does not help you outrun a predator or find food. So the explanation many naturalists reach for is that music is an accident. A few researchers describe it as a byproduct, an accident of sorts that evolution built for other reasons. Music on this account is a leftover. Something that just happens to feel good because it piggybacks on abilities we evolved for language, pattern, recognition, or bonding. The second story is very different. It says the reason music feels like it's pointing somewhere beyond oneself is because the universe was made by a mind capable of admiring beauty, and music is one of the clearest signals of that. So here's the evidence on the table. Across every culture, in every era, humans treat music as something close to sacred. We build rituals around it. We use it to grieve, to marry, to worship, to go to war, to fall in love. And it isn't just religious people. People like Einstein have described profound, almost worshipful reactions to music, despite not holding any traditional religious beliefs. So, if naturalism is true, we have to explain why an evolutionary accident produces a universal, cross-cultural, deeply felt sense of meaning, rather than something more modest, like the way we enjoy a good meal. If theism is true, none of this needs to be explained away. It is expected. A universe with a creator who values beauty would produce creatures who experience music as beauty, something more than noise. Because from the evolutionary perspective, it does not make sense to value music more than noise. If you've been to a Coldplay concert, or at least if you've seen one of those concerts, you can see how happy those people are at that moment. How can you say all of these emotions which we're feeling when we listen to music is a byproduct of an accident? Here's where a lot of the pushback tends to go wrong. Someone will point out that neuroscience can show exactly which part of our brains light up when we listen to music, marked on an MRI. But notice what it actually proves. It tells us how the signal is received. It says nothing about whether there's a broadcaster. Explaining the wiring of radio does not explain away the voice coming through the speaker. In the same way, mapping the neurons involved in a musical experience doesn't tell you whether that experience corresponds to something real or if it's a very convincing false alarm. That's the actual disagreement, not whether the brain processes music or not. Everyone agrees it does. The disagreement is whether the feeling music produces is tracking something true about reality or whether it's a beautifully engineered accident. It's worth being honest about what each explanation actually asks you to believe. If the naturalist account is right, then the most overwhelming, tear-inducing, goosebump-raising moments of your life, that wedding song, that funeral hymn, that symphony that made you feel like you touched something from heaven, are, in a most literal sense, malfunctions. Beautiful malfunctions, don't get me wrong, but malfunctions are the same. Rewind the evolutionary tape and run it again, and then there's no guarantee that you'd feel anything like when you felt that one minor chord resolve into a major chord. If the theistic account is right, none of that has to be explained away. The feeling is doing exactly what you were built to do, pointing to something real. Writers have leaned into this idea in fiction. For example, Tolkien, one of my favorite authors, in his book, he said that the world itself is sung into existence by divine beings before it physically existed. C.S. Lewis in Narnia, Aslan sings Narnia into being, and the stars join in the song. They are artistic intuitions that philosophers have been circling around for centuries, that music might be less like decoration and more like the oldest language to exist. The problem with the naturalistic view is that theism explains the depth, the universality, the felt meaningfulness of the musical experience better than what naturalism does. Because in the naturalistic perspective, your most profound emotional experiences are just a fortunate mistake. Whether that changes the perspective for you on religion or God, that is something for you to think about. Anyway, next time a piece of music catches you off guard, makes your chest tighten, or your eyes sting for no clear reason, it is worth asking, which story makes sense of that moment? An ancient accident of brain chemistry, or a god who loves beauty and wants you to experience that beauty too? Anyway, subscribe for more videos like this. God bless.